A business is not only a product, a service, or a website. A business becomes real when it can meet a customer, understand what the customer needs, and guide that person toward a useful outcome. That meeting used to happen mostly in person. A customer could walk into a store, a branch, a clinic, or an office, explain the situation in their own words, and receive help from someone who understood the business. Today, that meeting increasingly happens online. Customers arrive through chat, websites, apps, and social channels. They expect the same level of guidance, but many online channels still behave like static pages or intake forms. They can receive a message, but they do not truly guide the customer through the decision. The customer still has to know what to ask, which option matters, and what step comes next. Human support can solve this because people can listen, interpret, and adapt. But human support is limited by staffing, operating hours, training consistency, and operational cost. As demand grows, every repeated question becomes pressure on the team. A business may want to serve every customer well, but it cannot always put an experienced representative in every conversation at every moment. Traditional chatbots solved availability, but not the deeper service problem. They are always online, but many depend on menus, fixed scripts, and narrow flows. They answer the simple question, then redirect the customer to another page, another department, or a human queue. The business gains automation, but the customer still does not feel guided. AI customer service engine is designed for the next step, guided service at scale. The assistant understands intent, asks useful follow up questions, uses business information, follows policy, and helps the customer decide. It is not meant to replace the business. It is meant to become a configurable service layer that helps each business meet customers in the way that business actually operates. The business stays in control. Each deployment defines what the assistant can offer, which information it may use, when customer identity must be checked, which policies apply, and which actions require explicit confirmation. The result is not a generic chatbot, it is a business aware conversation engine that can be adapted across many service journeys. Now, let us see 10 examples, starting from open sales conversations and moving toward more sensitive support. In this retail journey, the customer does not begin with a product code. They simply need an air fryer and are unsure what to buy. This is exactly how many real customers behave online. They do not want a catalog first, they want help. The assistant turns that vague need into a guided sales conversation by asking about household size, cleaning preference, budget, counter space, and local availability. The business value is visible in the way the assistant compares options. It does not push one product immediately. It narrows the field, explains trade offs, and uses details such as size, power, stock, warranty, and cleaning features. When the customer hesitates because they cannot inspect the product in person, the assistant uses the exchange policy as reassurance. A policy that normally protects the business also becomes a reason for the customer to buy with confidence. This is the difference between answering and selling responsibly. The assistant keeps the recommendation connected to real product information, reduces uncertainty, and completes the pickup purchase only after confirmation. For a retailer, that means online chat can become a guided sales channel, not just a support inbox. The customer gets help like they would from a knowledgeable store associate, and the business gets a completed order. In the catering journey, the customer starts with an operational problem. They need coffee for a meeting, but they do not know how much to order. This is common in business services. Customers know the event, the people, and the constraints, but they do not know the internal package names or fulfillment rules. The assistant discovers the number of guests, timing, decaf needs, pastries, pickup location, and available pickup windows. Then it compares practical package combinations instead of expecting the customer to calculate quantities alone. The customer can choose based on coverage, dietary fit, price, and convenience. For the business, this reduces incomplete orders and repetitive coordination. The conversation produces the information staff need to fulfill the request. It also prevents the customer from choosing something that sounds good but cannot be prepared at the preferred store or time. This kind of assistant turns service knowledge into a guided ordering experience, asking the questions an experienced coordinator would normally ask before preparation begins. The real estate journey shows how the system supports prospects before they are ready with a perfect request. The customer is a first time buyer. They know a location, a budget, and a few priorities, but they do not yet know which listing is best. A normal search interface would make them browse and compare alone. Here, the assistant asks for preferences, compares homes, and explains why one property is the stronger match. It can reason about trade offs that are hard to capture in a simple filter, such as preferring kitchen space over a large yard. When the customer is interested, the same conversation moves into tour scheduling. For an agency, this is valuable because early interest becomes a qualified appointment. The customer does not disappear into a listing page. The business receives context about what matters to the buyer, and the buyer experiences guidance at the moment they are still forming intent. In beauty services, the assistant must be helpful without pretending to replace professional judgment. The customer describes dark spots, sensitivity, previous experience, and downtime preference. This is not a simple product sale. The business needs to educate, set expectations, and guide the customer toward the right next step. The assistant explains reasonable treatment directions, compares a gentle approach with a stronger procedure, and makes the boundary clear. The final suitability decision belongs in the in person consultation. That matters for service businesses where customer confidence is important, but irresponsible certainty would create risk. The value is not just booking an appointment, the assistant helps the customer arrive better prepared. It reduces uncertainty, explains what the consultation is for, and keeps the business within responsible boundaries. A clinic, salon, or advisory service can use this pattern to turn vague concerns into informed appointments without overpromising. Parcel support is about interpreting status, not just repeating tracking data. A customer says the package did not arrive. The assistant asks for the tracking number, checks what happened, explains the current state, and compares whether it is better to wait or open a trace. The important part is that the recommendation changes as evidence changes. If a revised delivery date has not passed, opening a trace may be premature. If the revised date has already passed, escalation becomes appropriate. The assistant uses policy and status together, then opens the trace only after confirmation. For logistics and support teams, this reduces unnecessary escalations while still acting quickly when action is justified. Customers get a clear explanation, not a vague apology. The business gets a cleaner support process where routine decisions can be handled consistently and exceptions can move forward with context. Flight booking demonstrates decision guidance when there are many possible options. The customer wants to travel from one city to another, can leave after a certain time, wants a good price, and needs to arrive before dinner. Those preferences create a real trade-off between schedule, cost, and convenience. The assistant does not dump a long, unfiltered list. It compares options across the day, explains the best balance, and helps the customer understand what they give up or gain with the selected flight. When the customer chooses, it collects the required traveler details and books only after confirmation. This pattern applies to any business where customers must compare timing, price, availability, and constraints. The assistant reduces decision fatigue. It gives the customer enough information to feel in control while helping the business convert search intent into a confirmed transaction. Subscription billing shows how the engine handles account questions without exposing information too early. The customer believes they may have been charged twice. Before discussing account data, the assistant identifies and verifies the subscriber using the configured rules. Once access is appropriate, it compares charges and explains the difference between completed and pending activity. This matters because not every confusing charge should become a case. Some items may resolve on their own, while others justify action after the right condition is met. The assistant helps the customer understand what probably happened, recommends whether to wait or escalate, and opens a case only when justified and confirmed. For subscription businesses, this means fewer unnecessary cases, clearer explanations, and a support experience that feels both helpful and controlled. In pharmacy support, the customer may not know which prescription needs attention. They simply say they need help with medicine. The assistant verifies the patient, reviews prescription statuses, and explains the available paths in customer language. It does not guess which prescription is urgent. It compares the records, identifies which one needs prescriber approval, and explains the fastest available next step. The customer can then confirm the refill approval request. The business value is consistency and safety. The assistant helps the patient navigate the process without giving medical advice outside its role. Sensitive information remains protected, staff receive a clearer request, and the patient leaves with a specific next step instead of confusion. Insurance claims are stressful. A policyholder dealing with hail damage does not want to search a help center. They need to know what to do first, what to avoid, and how the current claim should move forward. The assistant identifies the policyholder, checks the claim, and adapts guidance to the situation. If the roof is not actively leaking, the next best step may be different from an emergency response. The assistant can explain safety steps, evidence collection, repair caution, and inspection scheduling. This is where policy becomes useful customer guidance. Instead of leaving the policy in a document, the system applies it at the moment of need. With confirmation, it schedules the inspection and returns a reference. For insurers, that means more consistent claim handling and clearer customer expectations during a stressful event. It also means fewer avoidable mistakes because the customer is guided away from actions that could complicate the claim and toward the next operational step the business can actually support. The banking journey is the most sensitive example. The customer sees a card charge they do not recognize. The assistant cannot simply reveal account information or take action. It first verifies the customer, then compares transaction states such as pending, declined, and completed activity. This distinction is important. Not every unfamiliar transaction should be disputed immediately. The assistant explains the options, asks whether the card is still with the customer, and recommends the safest response based on the completed transaction that remains unrecognized. Only after the customer explicitly confirms does it open the dispute. This is controlled automation for high trust service, useful enough to help in the moment, but constrained enough to protect the customer and the business. It shows how the same engine can support consequential workflows without treating sensitive data like an ordinary FAQ. Across all 10 journeys, the pattern is consistent. The customer starts naturally, often with uncertainty. The assistant guides the conversation, retrieves relevant business information, applies policy, verifies only when needed, compares options, and completes the confirmed action. For a business, this means the system is not a one size fits all chatbot. Each deployment can reflect the actual customer journey: sales, scheduling, support, fulfillment, billing, healthcare, insurance, or banking. The engine stays reusable while the experience feels specific to the business. For teams that want to implement or extend it, the path is practical. Connect real business data, define the policies and boundaries, decide what actions can be completed, shape the tone and journey for the customer, then use the system to turn online conversations into outcomes that customers and businesses can measure. Start with one high value journey. Once the pattern works, the same engine can support more profiles without rebuilding the whole experience. AI Customer Service Engine is a foundation for customer service that is always available, business aware, policy controlled, and action oriented. It helps businesses meet customers online with guidance, confidence, and real completion instead of leaving them to navigate the process alone. If your business already receives online conversations, this is a way to make those conversations more useful, not only answered, but guided, trusted, and completed.